Bagging groceries? Hell yeah. Scrubbing grease off pans? On it. Time after time, I wondered if it would be easier to go upstate and look for work. I'd heard of good opportunities. Rainbow Hearts was expanding the Sunrise Village project to more locations, gaining nationwide attention over the past year or so. New shelters were dotted all over New York, in need of social workers now more than ever. We didn't need to leave the state. We just needed to relocate somewhere cheaper. And I was sure I could find work up there, where competition wasn't as fierce. These safe houses needed people who worked with the queer victims, and working with queer victims of domestic violence was my entire work experience. But Bruce had never listened to my pleas to move out of the city. Maybe now. Maybe this would get us to finally change things a little. I could even see us starting our lives there. Because this didn't feel like living. It felt like surviving. Quietly, I walked down the narrow hallway. To my right, we had a tiny bedroom behind a closed door. Ahead was a little kitchen, and to my left, a living room and a miniature bathroom. My destination was the fridge and a half-empty bottle of sour red wine. As I headed toward the kitchen, I heard a voice come from behind the bedroom door. In an instant, adrenaline poured into my veins, and I saw myself fighting a burglar. But as my stomach turned and realization sank, I knew how ridiculous it was to think someone had broken into the apartment. It had been locked. And there was nothing here anyone would want to steal. And burglars rarely moaned God's name with a slutty voice and in their victim's bedroom. My lips parted as a frown contorted my face. My fingertips were numb. I couldn't make my feet move any further. Hell, I could barely breathe. Harder. The moan came from inside my bedroom. I couldn't decide whether these were the tears of rage or betrayal, but they blurred my vision as my face twisted into a grotesque mask of horror. I leaned back against the wall, staring at the door behind which other people were shredding my life to pieces. Somehow I managed to inhale. The two of them, grunting, were too busy to hear my noises, and I just listened. I listened to the cacophony of moans and pleas for more. The bed's headboard slammed against the wall and the moans became muffled. That was my bed they were rocking. "Do you like that, slut?" A very familiar voice grunted. The moans became clearer again, confirming that the stranger did in fact like that. Then, once again, the stranger's voice was fused. That was probably my pillow his face was getting buried into. My feet moved before my brain caught up. I grabbed the doorknob as the traitor who was twisting the dagger in my heart neared his climax. "You son of a bitch!" I growled as the door flew open. Bruce startled, slamming his lower abdomen against a stranger's ass once more before panic visibly struck his limbs. "Jesus, fuck!" he shouted as he fell over to the side of the bed, grabbing his chest at the same time he pulled our blanket over his hard cock. His pretty thing screamed, his bare ass perched up as he knelt on my bed. The bed that I had made this morning when everything was still right with the world. "Aaron, it's not what—" The skinny, blonde guy with wide eyes was getting off the bed, hair damp and cock at full mast. He bent and collected his shit. I directed my gaze at Bruce and bared my teeth. Perhaps it was my murderous glare that shut him up. More likely, he heard where his words had been going and realized what a bunch of bullshit they were. "Sorry," the blonde one said hurriedly, voice shaking. "Leave," I growled without looking at him. "Nick, hold on," Bruce said, getting up, but quickly leaning back and pulling the blanket tighter around his body. It was safe to say he wasn't pitching a tent anymore. "Aaron, look," he said, but I didn't let him continue. "You fucking asshole," I said, barely containing my rage as the bare feet of his lover rushed through the apartment. I waited for his scurrying to die down. The front door opened and shut after what felt like an hour, my gaze never leaving Bruce's face. I would have stared into it.